Technology can be a wonderful thing, but it can also become your worst nightmare if you are not careful. Ever since computers became a household item, bad actors have tried to scam people out of money. In fact, according to the US State Department, 1 in 4 people will become a victim of cybercrime in their lifetime. Today, we're going to talk about how to protect yourself from hacks, ransomware, social engineering, phishing, and some other types of cybercrime. Foster and Motley's Luke Hale is here with the firm's director of IT, James Combs. I'm Patrice Sikora. And Luke, it's good to see you again. Welcome.
Nice to see you too, Patrice.
Now, James, this is your first time, and we're also saying welcome to you as well.
Thanks for having me.
All right, gentlemen, our digital lives are almost limitless. We work, we bank, we shop, we even share medical records online. One slip up and personal information can be vulnerable to hackers. So, James, would you please give us an overview of the current state of cybersecurity?
One of the things that we hear a lot today as tech pros is that many are confused about where best to focus their efforts to protect themselves online. And our conversation today will cover some 101 basics and simple tasks that can be completed at no cost. We'll break down the common terminology that seems to be the source of confusion for most.
Makes absolute sense. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Let's start with updating. What a pain in the neck it is, right? But we always hear we should be updating our devices. But how does this help keep us safe and protected?
The primary reason that we install updates is to install security patches on our devices. And in some cases, these updates install new features as well.
James, I will be the person on here that is interested but not informed. So before we got on here, I looked at my iPhone and I had 49 not yet updated applications. Seems like a problem, but I thought I had the auto update function on. Am I doing something wrong?
No, that's a pretty normal thing to hear from many when they find out that their operating system or their apps have not been updated. The reason for this is that auto updates many times will download the updates for you, but they will not install them. So it does require an extra step, a manual step, to actually go ahead and queue up the installation of that software update. And a lot of times you can schedule that to happen at a later time that's convenient for you, or you can choose to install it right away.
So that's essentially taking care of security concerns or performance issues in the different apps that are on my phone. Maybe they found a vulnerability and there's an available fix for that. Is that what those things do?
That's right. Most of the time, when you see the operating system upgrades, aside from the annual upgrades, the upgrades that you get throughout the year are typically to address vulnerabilities, which are basically, again, security holes that have been identified either by the manufacturer or by third parties.
So the good news is I looked to see if my operating system was updated and it is up to date. Does that mean I'm reasonably protected even though I have this, red thing yelling at me when I look at my app store function on the iPhone that says I have a bunch of updates?
Right. So there's two separate things. In the App Store, this would be where you could check for updates on all of the apps that you have on your phone. So this would be all of the social media apps or typical apps that you may have for work-related applications. And then the second side of this would be the system updates themselves, which you would get to through the system settings.
And the system settings is probably the most important thing. Is that right? Or are they equally important?
The system settings is definitely the priority, but I would say that the applications themselves are equally important. In some cases, if you update the system settings and you haven't updated the apps, you might find some issues with that app being able to launch. So a lot of times they go hand in hand. But I would say the more important part of it would be the operating system upgrades itself. And many times it's going to be the operating system that is going to be flagged under other systems that you may access. So it may say your operating system needs to be upgraded through like security applications that you may use, whether it be like a work VPN. Even your phone carriers nowadays will let you know if your phone operating system is out of date. Whereas with these third-party apps, such as like Facebook or Instagram, things like that, they're not going to let you know about that. But that is also important that you check that as well.
Okay. Thanks. That helps. Is there anything else I need to be updating regularly? I've heard some things about web browsers, but I don't really understand why that's important and how I would do it.
Yeah, it's funny because your web browser is almost like a miniature operating system in and of itself now. And so you do want to make sure that you regularly update your browser. The great thing about that is many times those upgrades, again, will load on their own, but typically require you to process that upgrade. And to be able to do that, more or less what's going to happen is it will install it and relaunch it. But the great thing about it is you can pretty much pick up right where you left off.
So I've heard that, when I shut my computer down, if I press the button and power goes off, I assume it's down. And when it comes back up, it, does its thing. I'll log in. But I learned that you have to do a restart for it to actually pick up a lot of the updates. Is that true for the web browser too? So I've noticed it takes a lot longer when I do a restart because there's some things sitting there that it seemed like needed to be updated, but had not yet been updated.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there. So with the computer itself, you're going to have updates through the vendor, which would be Microsoft or Apple, Google. And so the updates that are related to the operating system are separate from the browser updates. So
Okay.
you could look at the browser kind of like an app you would on the phone. So if we go back to the mobile device, we were talking about like iOS or Android updates for the operating system. And then the apps being like Facebook or Outlook, your work apps. So on the computer, you also have updates for the operating system. So Microsoft Windows, Mac OS, Chrome, and then you have the browser, which has separate updates as well. And so both of those updates will load a lot of times automatically if you have the automatic updates on. But again, very similar to the mobile device, on the laptops or desktop computers, those updates will download and queue up, but they still will require you to go through the process of actually restarting the computer to process those updates. And with a browser, many times it will say install and relaunch. The great thing about the browser is it's pretty painless and you can pick up right where you left off. Whereas with the computer, it's going to log you out of everything and you have to go through that whole process again.
Okay. That's helpful.
James, what about websites? Now, I hear that, you should log out of a website. I mean, I usually just close the tab and that's it.
Right. So that's a pretty interesting one. And that's what a lot of people do. And what's going on there is it's possible for bad actors to, if you were to have a attacker in the browser. So perhaps there was a situation to where the browser wasn't updated, or maybe there was a vulnerability that was so new it hasn't even been addressed yet. When those sessions are active in your browser, it is possible for a bad actor to be in the browser and to be able to use your authentication token, which is in the browser, to be able to access that site separately outside of your knowing. So it is important to log out of websites when you're finished using them.
James, we were talking and you gave me an example of someone that had not logged out of a website and then they went back a month later and they essentially had been logged in that whole time. So created some potential window of vulnerability to be for bad people to do bad things.
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes websites, I mean, you got to think there's so many sites on the web that we interact with. So it's difficult to say which sites are going to have uh, which safety constraints in place. But some sites have a timeout to where if you after you log in, they're going to automatically kill that session after 24 hours or so. But some sites don't have that, so it could be that you log in, and as long as your browser has not been completely closed down, you could be logged in to that site for, in that case, a month.
Well, we all learned something there.
Yeah, that's enough time for somebody to go and do some big damage.
Yeah. I keep hearing that two-factor and multi-factor authentication are important. I know it's an extra step. It feels like kind of an extra pain. It seems like we have to stay one step ahead of these bad guys, and ultimately it feels like we make it more complex for ourselves. Hopefully even more complex for the bad guys than it is for ourselves. But can you tell me why I should go through the trouble of doing a multi-factor authentication and really kind of the difference in that lingo between dual factor and multi-factor? What does all that stuff really mean?
Yeah, this is I think what we really want to get into today. So, as we know, as long as we've been accessing things online, passwords have been a necessary thing that we have to deal with. Love them or hate them, it's just been part of it. And what we've learned is that passwords alone are no longer adequate to be able to protect our accounts online. There's a lot of reasons for this. In short, if anybody wanted to crack a password, they could do that with given the right amount of time. Another reason is that with passwords, even though there have been complexity requirements put in place, such as a capital, a number, and a special, a lot of times there's patterns that a lot follow, which are typically, I would say, actually, the capital would be at the beginning of the password, the number is at the end of the password, and the special character somewhere in that password, many times at the end, is typically an exclamation mark. And so, in hearing that, you may say, wow, that actually sounds like a password that I may have used.
Or all of them?
Or all of them, right? And then, well, and what's more is that you just touched on the next part of it. So the uh the the tendency to reuse passwords or replay passwords is another problem. So, for example, we'll have a data breach, and in that data breach, you'll see and your email address, and you'll see that a password that you've used that has been compromised in that breach. And then in more times than we like to see, a particular person reuses that password across a lot of sites because it's easy, right? Like we jot them down on a sticky note or in Excel or different things like that. So what was introduced to try to help combat that was the first form of two-step authorization, and that was two-factor authentication, which is still in use today. And many times you hear two-factor authentication abbreviated as 2FA. And in most cases, two-factor authentication, 2FA, is a SMS or text message code that is sent to you at the time of login. So that process looks like I go to a particular website, I enter my email address, I enter my password with my uppercase and number and special character. And then with the two-factor authentication, I receive a text message, usually like a 5 to 6 digit code. And then I enter in that code and I can enter the site as I intended.
I've always felt pretty secure when that happens. Is that along the spectrum of security, should I feel pretty good about that, or like there's more to do, or what?
You absolutely should. Having any kind of two-step authentication, it results in about a 99% reduction of account compromise. So it's a significant improvement in your overall security posture by having a two-step authentication of any kind, whether that's the two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. And so what happened is, with two-factor authentication is that the bad guys always find a way. And so, what they have been able to do with greater success than, we like to see is that they've been able to more or less, intercept people's cell phone lines or impersonate their phone number. And so with that, they were then able to receive that code. And so that then more or less gave them the same level of access of just having the password alone. So the next version of security there would be multi-factor authentication. And what this is doing is it's adding an extra layer. So in some cases, you still receive a code. In some cases, you press a button. But ultimately, what's going on is there's an app that is installed on your phone, and that app is registered to the website, and it more or less also checks to see that it's something you have, right? So that phone is your phone, and that's just it's an additional thing. So that's where they went from two-factor to multi-factor. So now there's more than one thing happening aside from just the password alone.
So when I log into my bank's website on my phone, I see that I guess I've got a biometric thing set up where it takes a picture of my face. And then you're telling me that that picture is compared to the data on my phone that says it's actually me. And then that pings it back to the bank to say it's okay.
Exactly. So that is multi-factor authentication, and so there could be several things that could be used for that second factor. So that the application is registered to your device, which is registered to that website, and so there could be there's several different ways that that authentication can happen. So it could be a code. It could be that you've opted into the face identification, the bio, like you have. It could be a thumbprint in some cases, and it could be a PIN code. It could be any of those. Any of those are the typical things that you would see.
Gotcha. That helps a lot. So passwords, multi-factor stuff. I'll tell you a fun story. So I was at a conference a few years ago, and I saw the Patrice, do you remember the movie Catch Me If You Can?
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so the guy that was based on was Frank Abagnale, and he's a real guy. And actually, he now works as a security consultant to try to help people avoid bad guys like he was. Has actually worked for the FBI for some time. So he was doing a presentation, and he said, "Hey, there's something new coming, and it's going to make all of our lives easier. It's passkeys versus passwords." So, James, could you tell us about passkeys?
Passkeys are very exciting. I'm glad that you brought that up. So the great thing about passkeys is it more or less shuts down a lot of the issues we see today that we've tried to eliminate with the two-step authentication. So two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication, all of these layers were put in to try to stop bad guys from getting access to our accounts. And the passkey structure will actually shut down all known forms of account hijacking today. So we've even seen that with multi-factor authentication, there are certain things that can still be leveraged to gain access. And so that could be like an adversary in the middle type attack, which comes through in phishing a lot of times. So, you can get a link to a site that is may not even be like a legitimate site at all, but ultimately what they're trying to do is to trick you into logging in and then using your multi-factor authentication. That could even be like, the facial recognition like you were describing. And so with that, what happens is once that authentication happens, there is like a token that's generated that ultimately allows you into the site. Well, they're more or less sitting there waiting on that to happen. They can then grab that and then they can use that to more or less log in as you. And so then they have access to your account.
So let me stop you there. So the first part of that is I have to fall for a trick. I have to click on something that they send me that I think is legitimate, but is in fact not legitimate. Is that right?
That's one way. I mean, there's some other, that is one way that falls into the social engineering category, but there are other ways to where you can be tricked into more or less falling into the process of providing authentication. Sometimes it can be as crazy as just randomly, like maybe your password has already been compromised. You don't even know that. And more or less, we've seen folks receive multi-factor authentication prompts just at random. And some people think that, oh, maybe I caused that and didn't even realize it and accept it. So the challenge comes through to their phone and they just blindly accept it. And they've more or less just allowed bad guys to take control of their accounts. So the great thing about Passkeys is that it shuts all of that down because there are so many things tied into that technology behind the scenes. It requires that it's coming from the device that's registered. It can't be used to go to the wrong website. So there's so many layers to how that provides protection. That more or less the attacks that we know of today, like we were talking about with like a adversary in the middle or the phishing attack, different things like that, those will not be possible with the passkey because the passkey is it creates a cryptographic key pair, and so in that pair, there's one part of it is in your device, and then one part of it is on the website, and this is to keep it simple, it creates a password longer than we could possibly like remember or paste in. So, and then in addition to that, it keeps track of the specific device that it was created on. And then to use it, it requires either Face ID, fingerprint, or some form of biometric or PIN code that is specific to your device. So there is really no way, even if somebody was trying to trick you into doing that they could, because it's still specific to the URL the passkey was set up for. So there's no way to really fool you into giving it away.
The passkeys sound awesome. I haven't really seen one offered yet. Like, where do I look does Amazon have a passkey that I should be looking for?
They do. And that's the great thing about this is that I feel like in sharing this and getting onto this topic as soon as we are, hopefully it better alerts people of what is out there. So when passkeys are offered, they're familiar and they say, "Hey, I heard about that before. I'm willing to go ahead and set that up." But yeah, the big sites, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, you can absolutely set up passkeys now. But I'll share, I've even seen some sites more recently, such as Lowe's, Home Depot, some of the bigger hotel chains are offering them now. And more or less what happens is when you go to sign in with your username and password, say you already have an account, it'll just be something that's offered right there at that time. And it's very simple. You just say, "Yeah, I'd like to sign in with my passkey." It'll then save that passkey on your phone or computer. And from that point on, the next time that you go to log in, you will just enter in your email address and sign in with your passkey. You don't enter a password. That's all you do. You say, I want to sign in with my passkey. I was thinking about it, and I think the best way to describe it is, uh, we all have apps on our phone, like maybe your bank account or different things like that, where you are using your face to sign in. So we're used to that. We go to log into this app, then we use our face to log in. That's what it is like using a passkey for other things on the web. So not a specific app on your phone, but it's like a website on your computer, could be a website through the browser on your phone, but more or less you get that same experience that you're used to with logging into, say, like your bank account on your like an iPhone or something like that, or an Android phone, to where you use your face to let you get into the site.
But James, is this, you said it's device specific? So does each device have a different passkey for the same account?
It does, and so I'll tell you this. The answer is yes, but this is one of the big challenges that they had with getting passkeys to where they're at now. The technology is actually not new. It's been around for a very long time, and there was a past effort to use passkeys, but the issue was the passkeys were tied to a specific device, right? So many times you saw that passkeys were generated and saved to like a small key. It's called a security key. It actually looks like a physical key that you could plug into your USB device. But what happened is all of the bigger tech companies like Google, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, they've gotten together and decided to be able to build a platform to allow continuity between the different platforms. So if you have, for example, an Android or Apple phone and a Microsoft computer, you can actually have multiple passkeys for a single site. And then the passkeys can also transition through whatever cloud platform you have. So if you use a Mac computer and an Apple phone, the passkeys can, through that cloud platform, transition. So there's basically what they've done is, in addition to that, the name passkey came out of this too, because originally that's not what it was called. So they've really thought this through, and that came through some of the challenges they hit last time. They said, like, well, how can we do this right, to where everybody will embrace it and it will be a simple process for everybody.
That's amazing. The technology just continues to get better and better and better. But there are people out there, bad guys, who may not use sophisticated efforts to get in to hack your account. They trick you. Social engineering. Talk about that.
That is exactly why we have passkeys right now, because with social engineering is like we were talking about earlier, phishing and other forms of fraud. That these attempts are more or less to try to get you to give up your credentials. I mean, it can be as simple. A lot of social engineering efforts are a call to action of some kind, right? So it could be you get an email and it says, hey, if you don't log into this account, if you don't log into your LinkedIn or your eBay account, it's going to get shut down because it's been inactive, right? So they're trying to create this sense of urgency that you're going to lose access to your account if you don't do something. But ultimately, what's really going on is, though it may look real, it's really just an effort to get you to sign in, give them your username, password. And then, of course, the two-factor, multi-factor, the two-step authentication process we described a little while ago, they would then gain that token and be able to then, log in as you, take full control of your account. And in some cases, extort you. I mean, you could lose. It depends on what the account is, right? It could be as little as having to email your friends and say, hey, I didn't send that email. It could be a bigger situation to where it's, causes financial damage and things like that. Many times it is a call to urgency. And in some cases, it could be just something that they think that you would be interested in. It could be Oh, and by the way, click this link, here's $1,000 gift card or something like that, or a free cup of coffee, just different things that are, at the end of the day, it's a call to action. And then, as wild as this is, believe it or not, sometimes it's a phone call. People can call you and say, hey, this is so and so from whatever organization or firm. Can you provide your username and password? And you give that to them. They say, oh, and by the way, you're going to get a code to your phone. Can you give me that too? And it may seem wild, but it works. And so these kinds of things are happening. And this is really where the passkeys are going to be we're going to turn a corner as far as like being able to secure our online accounts with that. So,
So I actually had that happen like 2 weeks ago. There was this desperate call left on my phone, left a voicemail. It's been my experience that actually, if people leave me a voicemail, they're probably a legitimate person, unlike somebody else that spams my cell phone. So they left a very there was a sense of urgency from that my account had been affected at Walmart.com. And listened to it a few times because I guess I've used Walmart.com half a dozen times in my life. So just often enough that maybe it could have been real. And I listened to it 2 or 3 times and I thought, this doesn't sound right. I've never had a call like this from Walmart before. Uh, but it was convincing. It seemed like a real person. Maybe it's AI or something like that, but it was, it was interesting. So if I had a passkey on Walmart.com and I got that call, would I still be, and I did something dumb, I called them back or clicked something, would I still be protected because this passkey thing that I've set up in the background, it like solves all my problems from being a idiot?
absolutely. So that all the attacks that we know of today, including the situation that you just described, which is unfortunately more common than um, we like to think, that wouldn't be possible. And the reason why is because we're not generating a separate token of identification that can be separately used to authenticate as you. The way that this key pair works is that it has to be signed from your phone and can only be originated from the source that it was created by. So it happens all in one situation. So the only way, well, there isn't a way for a bad guy to impersonate a company to be able to do that. It would legitimately, if somebody were to say that and you decided to log into Walmart and you had a passkey, what would happen is you would log into your real Walmart account with your passkey, and that person would not be able to get in and impersonate you. So, you know, I don't want to say that there won't ever be a way around this in another way, like if your computer was infected or something like that. But for all known attacks that we know of today, passkeys are far and above superior to anything that we currently have with passwords or two-step authentication processes that involve two-factor and multi-factor authentication. But I still think it's worth noting that having any two-step authentication, two-factor, multi-factor is a 99% reduction as far as breaches and attacks go on your account. So a password alone these are the accounts that you want to focus the most of your attention on as far as things that you can do.
And I think too, people really just have to don't be stupid. Something may be intriguing, an email may be intriguing, or look like you got a call may be intriguing. But if it doesn't make sense, don't respond. I got a text. There's a package at our distribution facility, but the zip code is wrong. Contact us here. Oh, no, 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 no. It can get here without the zip code. I know that.
Patrice, that is such a an interesting example because I can't count the amount of times that I've encountered situations where people have reached out and said, "Hey, I just got this notification that I have an Amazon delivery on the way," or something like that. And it's like, "Well, did you order anything from Amazon?" No, but, or, things like that. So, I mean, that's really what, like you said, I mean, I think you really have to ask yourself, was I expecting this? Like, does it make sense that I received this? And I think a simple way around that too is if you do receive something like that and you are concerned, because I'll tell you what, sometimes it does come, like in Luke's case, it comes from a source that it does make sense. I have shopped at Walmart before. Not right now, but I have. Or perhaps it's even from um a bank that you personally bank with, right? Like, say, for example, it's the bank you bank with. And so it seems like it could be legitimate, but it's not warranted in a way that it was anything you initiated. So, in that regard, I would say the best course of action would be to actually just call them and say, "Hey, I received this message. Just, is there something that versus clicking the link and going through the authentication process, just give them a phone call."
Very smart. Well, gentlemen, this has been a fantastic discussion. I think we need to get you back again, James, for more. But is there something we didn't touch on today that you want to make sure we do?
Yeah, I think one last thing that I'll share is, many times, um, you hear uh, cybersecurity folks trying to, um, encourage everybody to use password managers. I would like to say that that is definitely still the case. And one great thing now is that Microsoft, Apple, Google, Android, they all offer password managers. Even though the web browsers now are offering really good password managers that have encrypted databases. And here's the cool thing: almost all of these password managers will save passkeys as well. So that's just another way to be able to save your passkeys and have that continuity between your devices. So just keep that in mind as you start creating your passkeys.
All right. Well, Luke, how can people get in touch with you and or James if they've got questions they want to learn more?
I think the easiest way is just to look at our website. It's fosterandmotley.com, fosterandmotley.com. There you'll find lots of information about our firm, and you'll find other podcast episodes. If you've been interested in this one, maybe you find another one. So just check us out and then give us a call. We're available.
All right. And folks, just be smart online, okay? Equip yourself with tools like multi-factor authentication, software updates, and question anything that just doesn't seem right. You don't have to respond to everything that comes in, And follow this Foster and Motley podcast to know when a new show is ready for you. Please share it with others. And thanks for being with us.